Hello and welcome to the second video in the brief tutorial series for OBS Utils. This time we will be looking at all of the features relating to the director. For this we are back in my test world and I'm going to open the director in the module that we set up last time. This right here is the director view. For the first part of the tutorial I will just go over what every setting in here does specifically. So we have all of these little icons, and they are structured in such a way that the same icon means the same thing. The only difference is that this one right here sets the mode that is used when a combat encounter is running, like it is right now in this world. And the lower one right here is for an out of combat situation, which we have now that I've turned off the combat. This will be switched automatically in the background. You don't need to do anything here. You just need to be aware that if these are set differently, that the behavior will change once combat starts. This icon right here means track all owned tokens. I will briefly show the OBS view of things. Owned tokens means any token that the user that is used for the stream is set as owner on in the configure ownership dialog right here. So it needs to be this permission, and then any token of that actor will be tracked in this mode. So right now it is both of these, and what the module will do is it will interpolate the position between the two tokens, and it will try to frame every token in the list of tracked tokens. The second setting down here in the out of combat tracking is unique to the out of combat type. And if you right click on a token, you can set this little thing right here. If this is set and you switch to the manual tracking, it will just track the tokens that have this active. And this is different from scene to scene. So if you have, for instance, your player character and it is present on two scenes, you will need to track them per scene. If you turn it on one scene, it will not also turn on the other. If I go ahead and turn it on for this token as well, you can see that the little overview up there changes. And if I turn it off for this, it changes again, and now we're just tracking this token. The third setting, which is in common with the in-combat type, is the player-owned tokens. This is set via the user configuration down here. If a player has a character down here, and you turn on this mode, then you will track any token on the scene that is owned by at least one player. That's how that works. The fourth setting, once again duplicated here, is cloning a specific player's viewport. You can set the player right here. So if I were to log in with a client for player 2 and then move my camera around, then this movement will be mirrored to the stream view. I will not log in as another player because the next button right here kind of works the same, but except for cloning another player's viewport, you will instead clone the GM's current viewport. So now as I move around, you can see that the OBS Utils view is duplicating my view of the scene. Any movement I do is repeated. There is a bit of a delay here. That's because if you do little movements like this, you don't want the stream view to be completely jittery, so there's some smoothing applied here. The viewport for stream is only updated every few seconds instead of continually. That's just to make the stream a bit less jittery when you're doing small corrections, like you move here and then you want to go a bit further. Like this is not reflected, as you can see. And then the final setting here on the out of combat controls is the bird's eye view, which will just zoom out. Although you will sometimes run into an issue where you are using this tracking mode and you're all the way zoomed out because you're the GM, but you don't really want the stream view to be all the way zoomed out. You want it to be kind of confined to the map in some place. You can also have a situation where you're tracking own tokens, and one of the tokens is just like at the edge of the map. If you do not want to see past the edge of the map, you can turn on this toggle right here, which will limit the viewport to the edges of the scene. So no matter what you do, you cannot show the outside of the scene. This has some unforeseen consequences in bird's eye view, because it will center the scene and then crop off anything that doesn't fit in the zoom level that it needs to have to hide the black bars. So you can imagine it as like, if you are in bird's eye view and this is turned on, you will crop the map into a 16:9 shape. And if you turn it off, you will instead have black bars, like if you're watching a movie on a TV, for all of the space that is outside of the map area to fill to the 16:9 area. Or really whatever you've set the browser source for your viewport to. You can set it to 4K if you want to, that will still work. And then this one right here, another setting that I've introduced on request of one of the users is if you want to look around on the map, but you do not want to change the scene because you have like a narrative scene here, and you as the GM want to pull in an enemy from outside. You do not want stream to be like, oh, what's the GM doing? No, you want this scene to be locked in just the way you dialed it for the stream view. So you can press this, which will stop any of the camera movement specifically to be proxied to the scene. Keep in mind, though, that if you're tracking tokens, that setting will do nothing. Okay, now we'll turn your attention to the few buttons in the combat section here that are not present in the out of combat. There is 2 total. This one right here is the currently active owned token tracker. It's a kind of a cumbersome name. What this means is if you are in an encounter, the token that's being tracked will be whatever token belongs to the current turn player. So if we switch the turn, the tracking will now switch over to this token. And then finally, we have this right here, which is kind of the same setting as this one, where you clone a DM viewport, except it will clone whoever is the current turn player. So if we have player 1, who is controlling this token, and it's their turn, their camera moves will be mirrored to the stream. And then if you switch the turn, the camera tracking will switch over to whoever owns this token. Although there will be a bit of a delay to save on resources, the viewport will only update once the other player has moved their camera. Although with my experience, this will be barely noticeable on stream because players move their cameras around all the time. All right. And then the only button in here that I've not gone over is this one here. This one will very simply just open the game settings in the OBS view in case you need to change anything. And then once you're done changing your stuff around, you can just close them and they are gone. So yeah, that's how that works. That is the director. There will be a couple more settings relevant to you though, and they are back here in the module settings. They start from here. So this right here kind of controls how zoomed out the canvas can be. I know these settings are a bit confusing because you would expect them to work the other way around. But you need to keep in mind the minimum scale is the zoomed out of the canvas because you're scaling it down when you zoom out. And the maximum scale is how zoomed in you can be. So if I change the maximum scale to 1.26 over here, and I save my settings, and I move the track tokens, now you will notice that the camera is much more zoomed out despite the tokens being very close together. And if I change it the other way, I kind of allow an up to 3 times zoom in, and I force it to be at least 2 times zoomed in, then you get the very weird artifact that is this right here, where you will just lose track of the tokens. I recommend that you never set the minimum scale any higher than 1, unless you really need this for something you're doing. And generally, I would just recommend not touching this setting unless you really have a specific use case for this. And then the maximum scale, you can do with whatever you want. I've put it to 2 as a default, which is, well, about this zoomed in. But if you just prefer wider shots, even if tokens are close together, you can do whatever you want with this and zoom further out. You can even have it be a wide aerial shot at all times, no matter how close together the tokens are. This is up to your preference. You need to update the tokens for this to take effect, but that shouldn't be a huge problem. The next setting for OBS mode, less related to the director, but still relevant here, is the pop-up close delay. If you open a pop-up, like if you, for instance, take some journal and you show it to your players, and you show it to all players, then it will open here, and then after the amount of seconds specified here, the pop-up will automatically be closed on the OBS end of things. If you make this 0, the pop-up will never close, and then any other number is going to be seconds until the pop-up closes. Then you have a couple of other settings here that affect how the OBS side of things looks. This one right here will, if it's turned off, mean that the combat tracker will no longer appear in combat. If I reload here, we are still in combat, as you can see by the little combat marker here, but the combat tracker is no longer visible. This is just up to personal preference if you want to have that there while you are in combat. These right here, a couple of them we've gone over in the previous video. The other ones are not related to the director. We'll go over them once we get to the feature that they are made for. Well, that will be the tutorial for today. This has gone over all of the features of the director view, which is the main feature of OBS Utils. Everything else was just kind of added on as a nice to have. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial. As always, if you have any questions, consult the documentation or come to the Discord.